Since the last devlog, I've made a few new tools for the player. I want the levels in this game to be non-linear, but that means you need a map or else it will get really confusing to navigate around. So I made this wrist map you find and equip. To use it, you bring it to your face and right-click to bring up a map of the level. There is no fog of war effect, the entire map is revealed right at the start, but it doesn't show any details like props or doors that might be blocking the way, so you still have to explore and figure out the level. And to help you explore, you leave a trail on the map as you move around so you know where you've been and can roughly figure out where you need to go. I also implemented a flashlight and added support for making dark areas where you use it. The flashlight is attached to your back when you're moving around, and when you equip a gun, it automatically attaches to that instead. I found this was the most intuitive way to use it, because if it was attached to your hand all of the time, it was just really awkward to move around. The final tool I made is a biosensor/stun gun. It detects enemies in an arc in front of you, displays how many there are with these dots above the gun, and beeps faster or slower depending on how close they are. For accessibility, I made it also blink this red light when it beeps so that it's usable without audio. The scanning also ignores walls, so if you see a suspicious door, you can scan through it to know what might be waiting on the other side. It also can fire a stun blast that can hit multiple enemies in a line, and you get one shot before you have to recharge it by pulling this crank in your inventory. The stun does no damage and is just to give you time to reposition so you can reload other weapons or line up headshots. Visually, it's inspired by the motion tracker from Alien and these 1960s early taser designs that I found. I also added a wire coil cylinder thing at the back you can see in your inventory. But the real purpose of the biosensor is one of the new enemies I've added. I was watching a video by Dungeon Chill about an old PS1 game called Enemy Zero. In this game, there are invisible monsters hunting you, and you have a one-shot energy gun with a motion sensor on it that beeps when an enemy is close to you. I thought this sounded really cool and scary and wanted to try something similar, so I made an enemy called the Ghost. It's invisible except when it attacks or takes damage, and then is only visible for a short time as blurry distorted camouflage. It also plays an alert sound when it sees you, and for accessibility I made an exclamation point pop up by your hand. When you encounter one, pull out your biosensor to figure out where it is. You can then stun it to give you some time to pull out a gun and try to kill it. But they're fairly tanky and will take a couple point blank shotgun blasts to kill. For the camo effect, I wrote a shader. I take the base sprite and apply some distortion to it. This is used as a mask to determine where to display the blur. I then take the screen texture, apply the same distortion when sampling it, and render that on top of the mask. Godot does not currently allow for per instant shader uniforms on 2D shaders, but I can sample the sprite's modulate from a shader by using the color field. So I use the sprite's modulate red and green channels as a 2D vector to control the direction and magnitude of distortion. For example, red channel at 1 means distort all the way to the right, red channel at 0 means distort all the way to the left, and 0.5 means apply no horizontal distortion. When the ghost takes damage, it sets a random direction for distortion, and then interpolates that direction back to a 0 vector to make the distortion fade invisible again. When it dies, it becomes permanently distorted and fades in a shadow underneath so you can see its shape better. Speaking of its shape, I had no idea what these should actually look like if visible, so I just drew some vaguely mutated silhouettes for its different states and went with that since you never see them clearly anyways. I also made another new enemy. This one was inspired by a TikTok comment that suggested I make disconnected limbs that attack you, and I thought this was pretty funny, so I had to do it. The way it works is the hand or foot is the actual character that moves around and uses inverse kinematics to clamp its base stump to a start position. When the hand gets outside of a certain distance or arc from the base, it stops moving and drags the base to it. When the base is close enough, it resets and starts moving the hand or foot again. If it touches you, you take damage and it stops for a few seconds. They have hitboxes covering the entire limb and die in one hit, so they kind of fulfill the same role as the rats did in Endoparasitic 1, and you'll find these hiding in corners or around corpses to ambush you. Something I thought was interesting, in Endoparasitic 1 I had stealth mechanics for the player to use to sneak around and fight certain enemies, but now in Game 2 I flipped it so now it's the enemies that use stealth to fight you instead. Some polish I've done since last devlog. When I was editing devlog 1, I realized I had animated the shotgun to flip in the wrong direction, and a bunch of people in the comments pointed it out as well, so I fixed that now. And also to clarify, since some commenters were confused, you do have to actually manually swing the shotgun forward with your mouse to flip it to rechamber a bullet. Someone also pointed out that the pistol slide should lock back when you fire the last shot in the clip, not afterwards. So I made it do that, and then I got the idea to add an M1 Garand style ping sound when that happens. I was finding it annoying that enemies were getting clumped in the center of your bag and you would have to constantly sort them. So I've made it so now items get auto-placed in different quadrants of your bag, like ammo at top right and health at top left. I'm not sure if this is the best thing to do though, so maybe requiring manually sorting would be better. Leave a comment with your thoughts. I made the player character skinnier in your inventory health UI since some people were complaining about that, and I added much easier puzzles for the logic computers. I don't think anyone liked the puzzles from Devlog 1, but these ones got a pretty good reaction on Twitter. I also added a bypass option if you can't figure out a puzzle. When you have a puzzle open, if you don't solve it in 20 seconds, a bypass button will appear under the keyboard, which takes you to the screen with a bunch of buttons. When you toggle all of them on, the puzzle counts as solved. I like this solution because it still takes some time to do, but isn't satisfying at all, so you'll still feel encouraged to do the actual puzzle. Zombies tuck their heads in now so they don't clip through the walls, and the player does also. I added support for having suffixes on elevator buttons, so it's easier to tell where a safe zone floor or storage room with a lot of resources was. I made so bottomless floor sections have a large echo, which sounds really cool. Finally, I did an easy performance boost by making levels start loading in the background while you wait for the elevator door to close when changing floors. This brought down average load times from 2.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Alright, that's everything I've been working on. Now for a tangent about my development philosophy. When making a game, there are 3 categories of tasks that I need done. Things I'm not good at doing, things I'm good at but don't enjoy doing, and things I'm good at and do enjoy doing. And to be specific, for me these are things I'm not good at, making music and writing story and dialogue. These are just skills I've never put serious time into learning and developing, so I'm just not good at them. Things I'm good at but don't enjoy doing, making environment art assets, doing level design, and doing general sound design. These things I just find super tedious and time consuming. Finally, things I'm good at and do enjoy doing are game design, programming mechanics, world building, art direction, designing monsters, and making sound effects for them. I find these parts of a game to be the most creatively stimulating and fun to work on. So whenever I start making a new game, I ask myself, will this game make money and how much money do I have right now? The answer to this determines if I should hire people and what for. For example, when I had a very small following and was making games that weren't going viral or really getting any strong reaction at all during development, the answer was, this game won't make very much money and I also don't have very much money, so I'm going to do everything myself. Then when making Rotflesh and Endoparasitic 1, both games that got a lot of hype during the development, the answer was, this game will probably make a lot of money, but I don't have very much money right now. Therefore, I'll pay people to do the things that I'm not good at because it'll make the game better and I'll make more money than I spent on hiring them. Now for Endoparasitic 2, I'm in a unique position where the answer is, this game will probably make a lot of money, and I have a pretty good amount of money right now. So for the first time, I can at last hire people to also do the things that I don't enjoy doing. So I've hired Angela He to make a bunch of environment assets for the game. We collaborated in the past to make Neural Rot for Ludum Dare 53, and she's been making things from barrels to beds to kitchen utensils. I've also hired a couple of level designers, Matthew Lacker and Kaya, to make levels for me. It's been interesting to play levels that I didn't make. I get a better perspective of what the player experiences because I actually have to figure out where to go instead of automatically knowing where everything is and what to do. Also, I forgot to mention in Devlog 1, Jazz Mickle is doing the soundtrack again, this time in collaboration with Clara Rubino. Anyway, that's all for Devlog 2. Go wishlist Endoparasitic 2 on Steam and back me on Patreon if you want to play the beta builds. Also, I'm pushing the release date to October 1st. I probably could have done September 15th like I originally said, but I just don't feel like getting stressed and crunching a ton of work, so I might as well just push out the release date and actually enjoy the development more.